we're getting a number of people here. Okay, I think I got everything set on my end. So I'm Roger Rayle, Chair of CARD and Chair of SAR Residents for Safe Water. And I want to welcome everybody to the June CARD meeting. We're not going to have a CARD meeting in July, so we're going to cover as much as we can this month and resume in August. So let me share the agenda. I recommend everybody use gallery view if they're on a PC or computer. And then you can see the shared screen side by side. And if you want to, you can use the vertical bar in between to make the shared portion smaller or larger to see more people or not. So these meetings are recorded. They will be posted to YouTube after the meeting's done. And if you're new to, if you have a question, you can raise your hand with the reaction button. And the moderator will call on you in the order that he sees the hands raised. If you're new, please introduce yourself to the group. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Beth for approval of the last month's minutes.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm the CARD secretary, Beth, and I'm also the one that sends out the email reminders for meetings and Zoom links. So if anybody is not on the email list, please message me in the chat or email me through however you got the link, and I'll add you to the list. And now we're going to approve the main minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
I'll move.
And all in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. Thank you.
Thanks, Beth. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And now I'm going to turn it over to Jack Eaton, the Executive Director of CARD, to moderate our meeting for us. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you, Beth. And let's not forget that we need to find a replacement for Beth, because she would really like to give up these duties. So diving right in, I see that we have a representative from the EPA. Is there any update from the EPA? Or maybe I'm wrong.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I'm here. And if you don't mind, I can share my screen. I do have a lot.
But let me make you a co-host.
Okay.
Excellent.
Let's see.
You will be getting a message that you're a co-host, and I will stop sharing my screen so you can share yours.
Okay. You see that?
Not yet.
And share.
Now it's coming.
Okay.
There we
Yes.
go.
Looks good.
Off my video so I can just kind of focus on my screen here. Okay, so yeah, thanks for having me. I do have some updates for you today.
I'd say go ahead and leave your camera on because we can see you talk that way.
All right, I'll just be looking at a different.
That's all right. We'll
Okay.
see you. They're used to seeing me look to the side too. So.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so I am Nuria Muniz. I'm an NPL coordinator for the Superfund division and EPA Region 5. And I have, I'll be covering the site inspection status and also what are our next steps, which includes another round of sampling and the fact that we're going into the NPL listing package. I'll make sure I'm on the right screen. This way. Sorry. Issues with the PowerPoint. Okay. I think that worked. So I like to start with this particular slide because it just kind of puts us all on the same page. As you know, we are the Superfund site assessment program. We are the program that evaluates sites for NPL eligibility. And we have a multi-year process, which we start with the PA at this stage. We review available information and score the site. And if the site scores high enough, we move to the next step, which is the site inspection. And that's a sampling event. We use available data and our own data to score the site to see if it's eligible for NPL eligibility. And we usually move forward to the next step, which is what we call the ESI expanded site inspection. It's called here site reassessment. It's not always necessary. And that's a report also that scores the site. So at any moment during these stages, if the site, it can score high enough and still move to a state program or another program, another federal program, or it can just completely leave our process. But if it scores high enough, it moves towards the hazard ranking system package. And that's the final score for this process. So the PA, the SI, and the ESI are all preliminary. So I'll be talking about when I talk about the site, I always talk about, this preliminary findings, preliminary scores. The final score is a hazard ranking system package. We also call it a doc record. And for that, we will need state support in writing. And also at this stage, this is a rule. This package and our score and our supporting evidence is available to the public for comment for 60 days. We take all those comments, we address them, and if we can successfully score the site high enough, it moves to another rule, which makes the site final to the NPL. And that's when the site becomes an NPL site. So because of all these different components and obstacles, EPA will never guarantee the listing of a site in the NPL. We can say, well, it scores high enough to move forward, but you'll never see me guaranteeing NPL listing. So that's just as a background as we move forward in this discussion. So let's see how okay. Yeah, all right. So again, purpose of the site inspection is to evaluate if a site is eligible for an NPL as an NPL candidate. And the HRS evaluation is more of a screening tool. So it's never a comprehensive risk assessment. And because it's a screening tool, it allows us to focus our evaluation on a pathway or a contaminant of concern that will lead us to a score. So we kind of ignore anything else and just kind of focus on the contaminant that we're interested in. And the site assessment process also conducts a very intense validation or quality assurance for all the results before we release those to the public. So for this particular sampling event, we had data quality issues. So validators found data quality issues in our reports and our results. For the most part, other than 1,4-dioxane, so 1,4-dioxane is fine. Most volatile and semi-volatile results were found not to be usable for decision-making while undergoing stage 3 validation. So, and that was because of holding time. So that's the time between the collection of the sample and the processing by the lab. And so I understand that, you know, in some cases, it's like 1 day or 2 days after for that required time to be able to use the data. So we cannot use that data. But in general, although not ideal, the compound results that were reported by the lab as non-detect, so the ones that are U qualified in the spreadsheet, that undetected is the old qualifier, were the ones that were found to be not usable. So while lab results will be published in the report, we cannot comment if they're present or absent in the report. Again, not ideal, but for our purposes of the NPL evaluation, 1,4-dioxane is our main driver and is our main contaminant of concern. We found it on the Gelman property and we found it in surrounding wells as expected, nothing unusual. 1,4-dioxane results are usable and were used to evaluate the site under the HRS. And you will be able to review all that data and all the data packages. So, and then I also remind you that the HRS evaluation is a deliberative process. So forgive me if I can answer all your questions or I don't dwell on the data quality issues today. I'm just protecting our process of putting the site in the NPL. So in terms of the site inspection report itself, we have received the site inspection report. We have reviewed it, and our headquarters experts have reviewed it. We're still in the revision phase, but our preliminary evaluations indicates that the site moves, it scores high enough, and we can move forward towards the NPL process. We feel confident enough that we're already moving in that direction of an HRS package, which I will describe in a moment. So the final SI report will be finalized and available to the public as soon as late July. And just note that all PII, personal identifiable information, will be redacted from the report, so you won't be able to map, you know, the residential wells and things like that. But all the information and all the results will be there. And again, the SI report is a report made specifically for the scoring, so it's not a user-friendly report, but all the information that you need to score the site is in there. So you will have this for your purpose and review. If you want to provide comments to EPA, do so in writing, and they will become part of the site file and available to the public. So basically, they're foilable. So that's where we are there. So this is the encouraging part, is that we're moving towards hazard ranking system. As you know, we're on the site inspection. I'm going to skip the ESI report and we're going to move straight into the HRS package. So we intend to conduct another sampling event, groundwater sampling of wells surrounding the Gelman property. One, we want to have, you know, all our sampling results in our package. That's one. But we also committed to the well owners that we would provide full information with volatile, semi-volatiles. We committed to that, so we're giving it to them by sampling again. So we'll start by asking everybody who allowed us to sample at their wells will request access, and hopefully we'll definitely start with them. There may be others, but we haven't. We're not there yet. Excuse me. The other thing that we intend to do different this time is, instead of using our contract labs, we're going to use our regional lab, which allows us more direct control, ensuring data quality. So, you know, this is not happening again. We're working with our regional lab. And lastly, we intend to use a private lab to evaluate 1,4-dioxane using method 522. We've used other methods in our previous information, so this will be just added information, and I think it will be well received by the well owners. So that's what I have for today.
So thank you so much. I really appreciate the presentation. It sets it out clearly for us. Are there any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have my hand raised.
Go ahead.
So we've had some data come back recently about drinking water contamination in parts of Ann Arbor Township, I believe, maybe Scioto Township as well. There was one reading of 9 part per billion in drinking water at a well that was debatable whether that was repeatable or not. But does EPA have a concern currently about existing residents drinking contaminated groundwater above EPA's recommended 0.35 part per billion in drinking water?
I mean, you're asking me in the context of that particular well that was reported as 9.
Well, just in general, does EPA feel like there's more urgency than there would be otherwise with drinking water wells contaminated?
I mean, I don't want to say that we're not concerned. We're concerned enough to be evaluating the site for NPL listing. I think that what's important here is that we did split sample in that area. I think what's in question is what's the delineation and characterization of this plume? That's not clear. That's clearly not well delineated, and that once a site becomes an NPL, that is what the RPM will focus on, is actually where delineation is. And the delineation also is affected by the method detection limit. So so that's what I hope to accomplish also in the doc record is to see what our delineation is, and we will basically close the dots. So where we have contamination, we can actually have what the plume looks like, but it's not a final delineation as part of the NPL doc record. But in terms of concern, emergency response, I wouldn't say that that's our position right now. We had the removal program help with the split sample, and we in both cases found non-detects at that particular well. So, but we are here standing by. If emergency response is needed, we will be there.
Thanks for coming today. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Anyone else?
I can't find my hand raised, but
Oh, go ahead.
I'm hearing all the right things, and thanks for joining and giving us a good update.
Yes, we really appreciate your attendance.
Yeah, this is all good news to me.
Thank you.
And go ahead, Kathy.
Hi, Nuria.
Okay.
We've spoken before.
Yes.
I have a question. You said you intended to close the dots. What does that mean exactly? Would it be just residential well water sampling, or would you put in any additional test wells?
The way, so, and I want to just go back. So NPL doc record will have a preliminary understanding of where a plume is. So when we list plumes in general, and the way we have that preliminary delineation is when we have an observed release, and this is a term for HRS. So an observed release is when you have the minimal requirements 3 times background. So if you have a well that could technically impact a receptor, in this case we call those targets, person drinking, if you have 3 times background, then that's an observed release. So, and it's rudimentary, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's your plume. So when a site becomes NPL, then you have a better delineation, then you look at attribution, then you look at all these different things, and then you narrow down or expand the plume. So whatever the listing appears is not necessarily what the end result is. That is done after a feasibility study. I hope that answers your question.
I'll take that. Thank you.
Okay. But it basically is a rudimentary, where are our dots of exposure? And we will, and roughly come up with a polygon of some kind.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? Seeing no hands, I'm going to move on to Debbie Dingell's team. Georgia, do you have anything?
Yes, I do. First of all, nice to see everyone. If you don't know who I am yet, my name's Georgia. I'm just here on behalf of the Congresswoman. She was going to try to be here herself today, but she has a hearing scheduled at the exact same time, which is obviously the joys of being in session right now. So she's doing that in DC. Wanted to announce that we have got a forum scheduled to discuss the Gelman plume on Wednesday, June 28th, and that'll be in the evening, looking at around 5 p.m. But of course, I will keep everyone updated on that. So yeah, haven't finalized the time there, but it will most likely be held in the Washtenaw County Learning Resource Center. So we're going to use that space. And at the forum, it'll have representation from the EPA, EGLE, state AG's office, state officials, local officials, and of course, the Congresswoman and her team. And so we are definitely looking forward to doing that. It's designed to be a forum in structure. So we would invite participation there from all interested members of the public. Of course, we know that that might go beyond who is able to attend these meetings routinely as well. So would encourage you to share that information, and more finalized information will be available on our socials and website. But of course, once I've actually got that information, I'll send it out to the whole group so that everyone's got it as soon as it's ready. Just wanted to make sure that we had a save the date out there as the different teams are working together to finalize information. But yep, that is the 28th. And I think at that time, that would be a great opportunity to share additional thoughts, again, trying to get as much public participation as possible to keep this conversation alive. So that will be later this month. And if you've got anything that you want to share with us as we're preparing for it, we'd really appreciate it, because we know how to put together forums, but we're not the scientific experts in that way. So would appreciate any input that you'd like to provide at any point in that process. And that's what we've got happening.
Okay. Go ahead, James.
Yes, just a quick question for Ms. Frost. I may have missed something. Do you have a time on the 28th for that event, and do you have a venue set up at this time?
So looking at around 5 to 7 p.m. I will make sure to update if that time is solid. And the Washtenaw County Learning Resource Center. Okay. That is our hopeful venue. That's almost completely finalized, so we can expect it to be there.
All right. Thank you very much for this. And thanks for the Congresswoman for holding this forum.
Yeah, she's looking forward to it. I hope everyone can make it.
Thanks again. James, go ahead and put your hand down. And thank our Congresswoman for everything that she does on our behalf. We really appreciate it. Seeing no further hands up, I'm going to move on to the next item, which is Dan here to comment on this? Alrighty, then we're going to move into the EGLE update. Dan Hamill, would you like to take over?
Yes, I can do that. Can you hear me? I think
Yes, we can.
okay. Roger, I'm going to go ahead and pop up a map.
Yep.
So give me a second here. Which share screen.
I better stop sharing my screen. Yeah.
Okay.
While you guys are doing that, can I just mention that, like, Georgia, when you do get an official time and date and venue, you or anybody in this group can email through the Card Core group and it'll hit everybody. It just has to be approved by Roger or myself. But yeah, then that helps leaving, me out the middleman sometimes. It can just come directly from you in the Congresswoman's office. Thank you.
And you can.
Is there a map?
There is.
There is
Okay. This map is from the fourth amended CJ, which was signed on May 17th. It is attachment G. It is the overall location of where monitoring wells are being, and also where they are being proposed or will be installed. As I said, the CJ was signed by the judge on May 17th. And these are the locations. All the locations that are identified here have monitoring wells installed. They were installed under the response activity order back in 2000 when that was issued by the judge back in 2021, with the exception of two locations. These locations here in the western area, location F and G. Those are the locations that need to have monitoring wells required under the CJ installed. So currently the access was being acquired while we were doing the response activity order, and then that was delayed or postponed until after the appellate court decision. So basically, it has restarted. Gelman is in the process of acquiring access to finish the installation of monitoring wells in these locations. One of the locations, I believe F, will have one well installed to make up a vertical section of the aquifer of the geology that was missed. There are two other wells there, as you can see within that circle. And then the other location will have anywhere from 2 to 3 monitoring wells installed, and that will be based upon vertically sampling during the drilling activities. They will take groundwater samples, and we will identify and review that information with Gelman and decide together where to install monitoring wells. The other thing that is identified here that is still remaining in the fourth amended CJ is the Rosewell remediation area. That area is where another extraction well will be installed. It is identified as a separate extraction well, Rosewell, or it can be also in this area. There is a former injection well, IW2, and that could be revamped to become an extraction well. Currently, Gelman is leaning toward revamping the IW2. In fact, they will do that as to do the first extraction well in this area, and they are planning that during this construction season. Again, it was signed on the 17th, so we met with them yesterday, kind of our first meeting as far as implementation of the CJ, of the required remaining tasks in the CJ, and confirm that they are finalizing all the everything they need to do to install to revamp IW2 to become an extraction well in this construction season. As far as in the agenda, there was a question about new monitoring plan. There are 2 monitoring plans that are identified in the fourth amended CJ. Monitoring plan for the eastern area, which is east of Wagner Road, and a monitoring plan for the western area, which is west of Wagner Road. The monitoring plan for the western area will be finalized after the installation of the 2 remaining locations. And then we will, all of the wells in the western area will be evaluated, and a plan of when wells will be sampled. In the western area, certain wells will also be identified as compliance wells to evaluate compliance with a non-expansion objective in the CJ for the western area. And then the remaining wells will also, all the wells will be evaluated and will be identified for sampling at certain intervals. Those intervals could be quarterly, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, annually, and every 2 years. The second monitoring plan identified in the CJ is for the eastern area. And that's everything east of Wagner Road. Since the wells that are in the fourth amended CJ, the final one that was signed, all the wells have been installed. The monitoring wells have been installed. So Gelman is currently generating a monitoring plan for the eastern area. Again, all wells in the eastern area will be part of this plan, will be evaluated, and they will submit, they're required to submit that monitoring plan to EGLE for review within 60 days of the signature of the CJ. So we're expecting a monitoring plan, a draft monitoring plan from Gelman in July. And so that is, we will then evaluate that monitoring plan and determine, come to an agreement of the wells and the frequency that the wells will be sampled.
Roger has his hand up.
Roger, you have a question?
Yeah. The new wells in locations F and G, I trust that those will be drilled to bedrock.
One of the locations will be drilled to bedrock. The other location, as it is identified in the CJ, is just to fill in a gap, a vertical gap that from the previous installations years ago of monitoring the 2 monitoring wells in that area. So that the second well will not be drilled to bedrock. The location G will be drilled to bedrock and vertically profiled.
You're talking about MW40D then, right?
Yes, I think that's the 40 cluster there. It's to fill in a gap. If you read the CJ, it clearly identifies that 1 well will be installed to fill that gap in. So that the drilling will go down to that depth, and a monitoring well will be installed.
I'm just looking up to see if MW40D was drilled to bedrock.
I don't recall, Roger. I'd have to go back to the born log, and I don't have that easily here.
It was, I just looked it up. It was not drilled to bedrock. So that location does not, we don't know what's there below 137 feet. So there's another 100 feet or so of unknown at that location.
Again, the adjacent location within that distance there as identified location G will be drilled to bedrock. So we will have some information to bedrock in the general area.
In the general area, but not close enough to, not as close as other locations. And I'll remind people that the new wells that were drilled secretly around the marshy area were not drilled to bedrock either. So there's areas that we were promised that all drilling would be to bedrock to characterize an area. And here's another example of where the drilling was not is not planned to go to bedrock, and that's just not acceptable. The other thing is IW2, if that's used as an extraction well, what's the screen length for IW2?
Roger, I don't have that off the top of my head. I'd have to look at the boring log.
Well, I have it, and it's 20 feet, I believe. And it spans at least 2 lithological layers. And so we're not sure when you're pumping it, the rate they're going to pump, which is less than what's the pumping rate going to be if they use that IW2?
The pumping rate will be vary. It will be combined with the
Right. So it's going to be less than 200 gallons.
yeah, the total area from the eastern area is max is 200 gallons a minute.
Yeah, which of course wasn't enough to keep the evergreen plume from expanding. And this is only a fraction of that. And we don't know what clean water is going to be drawn from, you know, from a nearby layer from that injection well. We don't know if it's going to draw from the top or the bottom. We don't know what the characteristics of the 3 layers that it's drilled through. So just so everybody knows that pumping from IW2 may not be reaching the highest concentration of dioxane that's in that layer because of the wide screen. A wide screen is good because you can get more water in, but you may not be getting, you may not be targeting the highest concentration of dioxane. Just so everybody knows that's
Thank you, Roger. Go ahead, Glenn.
Let me lower my hand.
Dan, you mentioned a goal of non-expansion of the plume. Does that mean no expansion in aerial extent, no increase in concentration, or both of those?
Well, the non-expansion objective in the western area is could be both aerial, you know, and vertical. But let's make sure I want to manage expectations. The non-expansion objective expansion is defined as monitoring wells. We will identify compliance monitoring wells after we get the last set of locations put in, evaluate all the wells, and then there'll be compliance monitoring wells will be identified as compliance wells. And so expansion is that those wells have a concentration of 7.2. If contamination in those wells is below 7.2, then it's not defined as a expansion in the western area. So it can be in a horizontal, aerial extent. It can be in a vertical, vertical extent too.
So the concentrations could increase,
right?
Before the plume gets, or before the compliance wells, and not be considered expansion. Is that correct?
That's correct. The definition is that 7.2 criteria is the focal point, the fulcrum. If it goes above that in a compliance well, then that is defined as expansion.
So that applies at the compliance well.
I didn't hear you.
So that 7.2 would apply at the compliance wells, but up gradient of the compliance wells, that 7.2 does not apply. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, it could. The scenario you just described could happen. Up gradient, you could have higher concentrations move into monitoring wells, but the compliance of the non-expansion objective will be evaluated using the compliance wells.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Rita.
Thank you. So Dan, if I heard you correctly, you said that all the planned monitoring wells in the eastern area are installed. And that would imply that no further monitoring wells are planned. And that leaves the whole question of the shallow exposure potential unmonitored. Am I correct in that? Or could you clarify, please? Thank
The
you.
clarification there is the message I want to get across is all of the monitoring wells that are identified for immediate installation have been installed, and the locations are identified here on that on the map. There is in the fourth amended CJ, there is a component called the down gradient investigation. And that is where additional wells can be installed or will be installed as to evaluate movement of the groundwater contamination to the east within the prohibition zone. So, you know, there will be additional wells installed. It's just not at this time.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay. Glenn, could you put your hand down? And go ahead, James.
Thank you, Jack. Dan, thank you very much for having the map on the page. And this is actually for Kathy Nolan. We're discussing this further in the agenda. I'm looking at on the map in the northwestern monitoring well, that's location K. Is that the site of the KOC property? Is anyone from Scioto Township familiar? I can't drop the second map on my screen.
I can't tell from this map, to be honest with you.
Okay. Well, it's
Trying to
certainly
see it,
interesting.
I can't.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it is interesting just to see that. So I guess I'll comment further on that when this item on the agenda comes up. Thanks, folks.
Location F is the one that's closest to the
Yeah,
KFC
that's what I
site.
thought too.
And that one, as Dan said, will not be drilled to bedrock.
Roger, how far is it from the KFC site?
Dan, are you done with this screen?
Yes, unless someone else has any questions that I'll stop.
If you stop your share, then I can.
I believe I stopped it, Roger. Is it? Yeah, okay.
Let me share my screen. And I was just looking at the well log for the nearest MW130D is the one that's nearest that MW40 cluster. And it found shale about 280 feet down, which again is about 100 feet deeper than what MW 40D was. So let me share my Google Earth mashup here. So we're talking about this area here is MW40D.
Your map is not on the screen.
Oh, I haven't hit share yet. There we go. Sorry. Thanks. I have three screens to look at, so I'm bouncing back and forth. So here, this is MW40 cluster here, where the location F is going to be. And how far is it from MW40 to the KFC property? Path, undo line. There we go. It is about 1,500 feet, 1,600 feet, or a third of a mile. It's about that distance to the homeowner that has two detectable hits with the 522 method, which is right next door to the KFC site.
Okay.
And we don't have a whole lot of drilling to bedrock in this whole area here. Let me see if this one, W42D, did that go to bedrock? Let me bring up that W42D. It's nice that we, you know, if ever all the decision makers happen to have something like this right near. So 42S, let's see, 42D should be the next one. Yeah, that one went all the way down to 90 feet, which is, you know, a couple hundred feet short of bedrock. So there's really, we really don't know what's going on in the area 100, 200 feet below in this area here between where the plume is and where the KFC property is and all these homes. Let alone how the dioxane gets to these locations. We don't know the pathway for these hits. So these hits on Elizabeth and this hit on this Dexter Road and the one over here at Breezewood. We're not sure how the dioxane got there because we don't have enough data.
Okay.
Anyway, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Josh,
Josh.
you have a hand up?
Josh has his hand up. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I was just curious. Can we get through Eagle's update before we? This is important stuff. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the KFC property and all that, but I just like Dan to get through his update before we go off on these types of tangents, if that's okay.
Good point. Let me
Thanks.
share the agenda again.
So we're going to return it to you, Dan Himmel.
Okay. The next item is the request for information and all sampling data that was shielded in the confidentiality agreement. And I have no new update as that confidentiality agreement is still in place. So the next item is the Washtenaw County Health Department and EGLE homeowner well sampling update. That sampling started today. Washtenaw County and some EGLE, our district geologist, Chris Svoboda, is helping Washtenaw County. They've started sampling the residential wells in our 2003 sampling event. There were 250 wells have been identified for this year's sampling. Again, not all wells are usually sampled, meaning that people don't turn their outside spigot on, or they don't respond to the request, to the access request that has been sent out by Washtenaw County. So, but they are starting that event today. The latest information I got from Washtenaw County, from Jenny and Kristen, is they anticipate completing that here in June, over the next couple of weeks, and then those samples will be sent to the EGLE laboratory for 1,4-dioxane analysis. The EGLE laboratory does use method 8260 and has a detection level of 0.5 parts per billion. Once that information is the lab finishes that, gets it back to the Washtenaw County, they send out letters to the resident homeowners, and then I start adding it to the database to the information that is available on the webpage. The next item is the GSI work plan for the Allen Creek drain system. Like I said, the CJ, fourth amended CJ, was signed in May 17th. So previous to that, under the response activity order, there were two work plans submitted, GSI work plans, one for the eastern area, one for the western area. The Allen Creek drain is in the eastern area. So they have submitted that work plan previously. We initiated, EGLE initiated review of that work plan. We did not give formal response back. So basically we're, as discussed in the implementation meeting yesterday with Gelman, they are going to revise the GSI, that GSI work plan to make sure it fits in and has all the components required under this signed fourth amended CJ, and submit that back to EGLE. Now they have I believe a 120 days, I believe, is the time limit, but it's 90 to 120 days that they have to get that revised work plan back to us for review. So that's the status of where we are. It will be revised and to make sure it incorporates all the required items under the fourth amended CJ. The next Water Resource Division and NPDES renewal update, I have no new information. They have that I can present at this time. So they are still in the review process for that renewal. And that for those of you that are new, basically there is a current NPDES permit that Gelman utilizes to discharge their treated groundwater to a unnamed tributary of Honey Creek right near their facility. And they are still utilizing that permit to continue to discharge. That permit is a renewal was submitted by Gelman and has been in review by our Water Resources Division for some time. I really don't have anything under what's new, any new items. Again, the big driving force of the big items that we will be implementing is related to the signature, the items that are remaining and are required in the fourth amended CJ, which was signed less than a month ago.
Okay, thank you, Dan. I see. Oh, go ahead, Vince.
Oh no, if there's still questions on this comment, I'm going to speak for Patty when we get there.
Alrighty, go ahead, Vince.
Oh, thanks, Josh, for coming today. Has EGLE evaluated the publication that was in a Elsevier journal showing that near surface groundwater contamination is potentially a dangerous exposure route to homeowners, given the fact that we had in recent years 49 part per billion on the west side of Ann Arbor, and that publication, which was peer reviewed and accepted, proposed 150 part per billion could be a dangerous exposure to the occupants of a house or a business where the groundwater is contaminated and migrates into the house and then evaporates. Has EGLE, I know EGLE has said they've read this article, Dr. Robert Bailey and Dr. Rita Lacruzzo published. Any position on that currently? Thank you.
We have not done a formal evaluation. We all along have reviewed that information and review data collected, any of the data that collected in that area, and are aware that of that publication and that screening level of 150 parts per billion. So we have not formalized a review of that, but are aware of that, of the concerns, and we'll make sure that any of the data is reviewed with that in mind.
So is there a potential that the EGLE would introduce a standard based on that finding and other findings in the future, or is that not going to happen?
I can't speak for promulgation of any remaining criteria or screening levels upcoming of when that may occur. Again, the EGLE is aware of some of these reviews of pathways. So if when that review of for formally promulgating screening levels or criteria, that they will review that, all the information available to come up with an appropriate screening level or criteria.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
I really would like to see EGLE take this up as a real concern for the community, given the fact that we're at almost 50 part per billion, and 150 is considered a unsafe level. So thanks.
So, Dan, would it require any legislative action to promulgate that kind of rule, or can EGLE take that upon themselves?
I can speak to that, Dan.
Yeah, you know the process better, Josh.
It's both administrative, stakeholder, and yes, there is a legislative process. It's what's it called? JCAR, Joint Committee on Administrative Rules. So we have to go through our in-house process to develop new criteria. Then it currently goes in front of an environmental rules commission committee to determine if they need more information or they can pass it on. Then it goes to a joint House and Senate committee on rules, and they have authority to approve, overturn, delay, do all sorts of stuff. So it is a lengthy process to go through. But yeah, it goes through administrative, executive, and it goes through legislative review.
Okay. Thank you. That makes that clear. James, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'm sorry, forgive my dog barking in the background. Let me just verify in terms of the MPDES update permit. This is the same one that's been pending for the discharging on Henry Creek tributary. Could you explain to me again what the timetable is on that again?
Well, as far as a timetable, I can't speak to when that the next step of that review process will be done by WRD. The next step will involve, I mean, they'll review it and then they will have direct contact with Gelman and work, Gelman and WRD will work through that permit. And then after that is done, then it is made available for public comment. As far as a time frame when that's going to occur, I don't have that information. They have, I've asked that question and they are still saying we're still reviewing. So they have not, I can't say that it's going to be, 2 weeks, a month, whatever, but it has been ongoing for some time. Under the rules and regulations, Gelman can still discharge using following the requirements of the old permit, and they present all the evaluation information required under the old permit and EGLE Water Resources Division evaluates the information and makes sure they are in compliance with that old permit.
All right, I appreciate this. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
I have one other item under what's new. And I should have set it up under the update of the sampling, Washtenaw County and EGLE homeowner well sampling. Like I said, we believe Washtenaw County believes that that sampling will be completed here in the next couple of weeks in June, early July. But we are going back at the end of the summer, probably in August, September, and resample the Ann Arbor property, the 2433 Blueberry Lane property, which was a property in question starting last October with some positive results that were sampled multiple times, split sampled with EGLE, Ann Arbor Township consultant, and then the EPA eventually came in. And after those initial positive detections, there was non-detect up through March. So we're going back here at the end of the summer and go ahead and grab another sample at that locations to do to make sure what the current conditions that what had been indicated with that evaluation period of January through March, that there was that the homeowner is not at risk with drinking groundwater above the criteria. During this time frame until the August sampling, we are still providing bottled water to the homeowner.
Okay. So when you return to that area, will it just be that well, or will you do sampling of other wells in that?
No, it'll be just at least what is planned right now. It'll just be that well.
Okay, thank you. Good enough. Seeing no further hands, I'm going to move on to the old business. And Beth has said she will provide Patty's update. Go ahead, Beth.
Thank you. Yeah, Patty had another conflict this month, but she promised she'll join us next time. And they did the testing on the 2 Sentinel wells, which are in Ann Arbor, the Miller Maple Road area, have all been non-detect when tested, and everything else has been non-detect if they've been involved in anything.
Righty. Any comments or questions on that? Moving right along. Rita, do you have anything to report on the Yale Superfund research program?
Only that I'll be leaving tomorrow to go to their annual meeting. So I figure next month, maybe I'll have more to say. Thanks.
Well, you could feel free to distribute a brief summary of the meeting in an email to the whole group, if you want to take that upon yourself. And I appreciate your efforts on that program.
Jack, I
Thanks.
couldn't raise my hand fast enough on the prior item.
Oh, go ahead.
Sampling from Ann Arbor. Beth, did Patty say whether or not that data has been submitted to the state to be included in the database?
I don't know. Does EGLE have anything on that, or do they know?
Seems pretty important.
She had not submitted it to me yet. We have had discussions, and I believe it's going to be submitted. We share information, but that has not been done to date. And I do get it, I will add a spot in our database and put it in the database.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that should just be a one-step process, just like it should be a one-step process when you get the monthly data from Gelman. It can be in the same format even.
Right.
So that shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes to do that.
Well, shouldn't take a person that's much better. It takes me 8 minutes, Roger. I'm a little slower on with doing the database.
8 minutes is good.
Go ahead, Vince.
Yeah, I just would like to reiterate that I think the city has not really interacted with the CARD group on potential sampling locations for near surface shallow groundwater. I think they've done some poor judgment on selecting where to do testing. I'm not sure why that is. I certainly hope and think that EPA will listen to the CARD group and take our advice seriously, unlike the city of Ann Arbor that does not involve the CARD group in many of these decisions. And I think that's unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Rita.
Sorry, I just wanted to add about the Yale meeting. I should give people the opportunity, if there's anything from this group that you would like me to take to the Yale annual meeting, I can do that. You can either put it in the chat now, or you could send me an email. I will leave, as I said, tomorrow, and the meeting starts Thursday morning. So I just wanted to send out that, open offer to relate anything from this group to the Yale Center.
Is there going to be an online component to the meeting?
Oh, no, I don't believe so. These are like, I don't know, maybe there is. I'll ask. It's usually not open to the public, though. It's usually these meetings are I don't know. Anyway, you don't want to know more details.
I don't need another meeting.
Go ahead, Beth.
I don't see Heather with us. I wonder if she might have thought it was a 6 p.m. meeting like last month, but she wanted me to put on the agenda the item that I put and to like firm up a date and stuff. We'll email the CARD Core group.
Okay, and she did say I was going to contact her. I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to send her an email, because she had said that she was going to try and come to New Haven for the meeting this week. And I, if she would, that would give me a real opportunity to kind of put some flesh on this. And
Thank you.
I'll see if she's there. Yeah, let you know.
So Beth, Heather is on our email list, right?
She is, but
And
sometimes people get those times mixed up and
Yeah.
Well, you do a good job of reminding us of time and day, the day before a meeting, which I just want to express
Yeah.
my appreciation for. I really appreciate that.
people still forget. I don't know. It must be
Okay.
easy to get them mixed up.
Okay, seeing no further hands up, I'm going to move on to the intervener update. I was hoping that Yusuf would stick around and participate on this matter, but he had to duck out for another commitment. So, Kathy, do you have anything to report?
The only thing I have to report is that the interveners have until June 30th to file their complaints if they want to remain as interveners, or they will be dismissed from the case. So SIO met in closed session 2 weeks ago with our attorney to discuss all the issues related to that. And I can't comment right now. No complaint has been filed at this time, but there will be action in the next couple of weeks. That's all I can say.
Someone mentioned to me last night in a phone call that the city had filed something. Are you aware of any filings from other interveners?
Do you know when that was? Yes, there was a filing a while ago. Has there been something recent?
Well, I think that was my question. So neither one of us knows, and so we can move.
I don't know then. I don't want to say.
Righty. Any questions about this matter? Let's move along. Mike, do you have anything to report?
Yes, by way of the questions of the next round of Ann Arbor testing and the other one to Dan Hamill regarding whether other residents in the area of the Bloomberry residents will be tested. By way of summary, the board has formed a request for proposals for testing about 24 homes in the neighborhood and around the Blueberry home area. Tetra Tech has filed a response to the proposal. The Board of Trustees has met and approved the response for proposal from Tetra Tech pending attorney approval. And at this time, the two attorneys are swapping forms, and we expect that to be resolved shortly. And letters have gone out from the township to the currently 24 proposed areas for testing, and we're compiling the answers for permission. The permissions.
Well, thank you. That's great. It's nice to know that there are entities that don't feel constrained by the CJ. Are there any questions or comments on Mike's report? Then moving on to the KOC proposed development. Can you update us on that, Kathy?
Sure. The proposed development will be on the Planning Commission agenda next Monday, June 12th, 7 p.m. It'll be a Zoom meeting and an in-person meeting. It was on the Planning Commission agenda 2 weeks ago, but some materials that the developer had submitted to the township were not included in the packets for the planning commissioners. So the decision was made by the Planning Commission to postpone this. No vote has been taken, and so we have to go through everything again next Monday. I will not be there or watching. I'm going to be gone next Monday. Roger will be speaking at the Planning Commission, and we have asked Larry Lemke to review the applicant's proposed work plan for this project. As you recall, the applicant never completed the hydrogeology study that had been requested by the Planning Commission prior to preliminary site plan approval. So none of that's been done. The applicant is pushing to get a determination from the Planning Commission on their recommendation. And then presumably this will go on to the Scioto Township Board for a vote. Larry Lemke has reviewed the work plan. I don't know what his opinions are. We have a Zoom meeting scheduled for tomorrow at 3 p.m. with Jan Culbertson, who's the chair of the Planning Commission. Roger, you are invited to that Zoom meeting. And we'll see. There's a new piece of information that Roger has just shared with some of us. And Roger, I'm going to let you talk about the testing and the well depths that had been done in the area of this proposed development. The applicant had stated that the Gelman plume was very deep in this area. And now Roger's data suggests otherwise. So I'm going to let Roger talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I'll do it.
This will come up tomorrow in our discussions.
Yeah.
This is all evolving right now.
Yeah, it's popped up without us having time to prepare both times, both the Planning Commission meeting last time that item got postponed and the one for next Monday, which conflicts with another meeting that I normally have on Mondays. So it's very disruptive to have these things pop up again without having the clarification of the groundwater studies and all the other information we need. What time is that Zoom meeting tomorrow, Kathy?
3 p.m.
3?
3 p.m.
3 till when?
I assume 4.
Okay, because I have something at 4. Okay. I can be there for 45 minutes of it anyway.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I have a quick question, Kathy. Is that developer still proposing using city water?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so just recently I filed a FOIA with the city to get documents about the Scioto City water agreement. And this is outside the water supply area. Are you aware of them applying for water from the city or?
I would like to see those documents because the applicant and our utilities director are saying to the Scioto board that this is in the water service area. So I want to see those documents, please.
I will forward those to you.
Yeah, forward it to card admin too.
Alrighty.
Anything relating to that we need to have in the card archive should be shared that way.
So, there's a 1994 agreement, and what I FOIA'd is any modifications or extensions of the service area since 1994. And as nearly as I can tell from the documents provided, this property was not added to the water service area. So
You're sure it's water, not sewer?
there's maps for each, and
Yes, I know.
my understanding of those maps, this property wasn't included, but I will admit that I didn't really pore over it in any great detail. So, already.
Once I get the maps, I'll put it on Google Earth so we can see it.
Okay. Go ahead, James.
Yeah.
James?
Can't hear you.
We can't hear you, James.
Are you okay, James? No audio, no video. He jumped off and he's going to get back on, I think.
Okay. When he comes back, I will. Oh, go ahead, Beth.
Beth, you're muted.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. There's James.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Any rate, I did attend virtually the Planning Commission meeting, and I felt that the commission did a very good job of doing their due diligence. I can understand why the meeting was postponed. I will have some arguments to bring before the Planning Commission. I'll do so at the Monday meeting. As far as what the applicant is asking for, they're asking for extension of water. The project itself, they're going to develop their own sewer system.
Yes.
A private sewer, so they won't be connecting to city infrastructure regarding that, although that has concerns, raises concerns of its own, but the overall plan issues. But germane to here, what they're basically asking for, they have two iterations of the plan. One is for a cluster development, preserving some natural features in some wooded areas and a wetland. The other is a total build out with a more rural density requirement, but throughout the entire property. And that moving forward with a hydrological study as requested by the township until whichever plan is approved by the Planning Commission, a preliminary recommendation. They're not going to do anything else regarding that until you want the plan as pictured or the one that has a total build out over the entire site, clear cutting the area.
Wow. Great, thanks for that insight.
That's the parallel plan.
Correct. And many of those sites, we are told, don't perk. So the parallel plan is probably not an accurate parallel plan. That's another, we haven't gone into that. I'm not going into that. That's a different issue for the Planning Commission.
Okay. Anything more on the site?
If I could make a comment.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to remind folks that the City of Ann Arbor, the mayor, had proposed looking into getting Detroit water for the City of Ann Arbor. And I think that's largely due to restrictions on flow on Barton Pond, or the amount of water available is getting close to where the city can't expand as much as it would like to. So SIO may have issues with getting the City of Ann Arbor to allow, more water to outlying areas. I don't know for a fact, but I'm just saying that was debated and it was shut down to go to Detroit water. So, Ann Arbor will still maintain water from Barton Pond. So just to put that out there, it may have some effect on this development. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a good point, Vince, because Phoenix is going through that right now, where they have to restrict new buildings because they don't have enough groundwater.
Well, notably, the water agreement between the city and SIO has not just a geographic limitation on where we'll provide water, but it also, I think it has some limits on how much, and it kind of obligates SIO to restrict how much water they draw from the city. Go ahead, Beth.
Well, I keep lowering my hand because I feel like I should just shut up, but like when the Ann Arbor situation, the planning commissioners laughed at, oh, we can't stop development over any contamination. And so I don't know. I feel like, yes, this kind of thing should be scrutinized. I've got documentation, EPA documentation, that says that you shouldn't be pushing water into contaminated plumes or taking water out of contaminated plumes. So maybe since the EPA is kind of involved with us now, and they were not when I was dealing with it, maybe we need to ask them what they think. And anyway, good luck. Good luck.
I think the modeling by Mr. Lemke would address some of that. So go ahead, Kathy.
I wanted to mention that the city of Ann Arbor has put together a focus group. It's a technical advisory committee to provide input to the city on Ann Arbor's source water master plan. And the focus of this group will be to look at updating the city's surface water intake protection plan and the wellhead protection plan. I was invited to join this group. The first meeting was last week. The next meeting is in 2 weeks. And the initial meeting was just to break out into small groups, discuss issues. The Gelman dioxane issue was discussed, and PFAS was heavily discussed. So I'm just mentioning this, it's just starting, and I will try to keep this group updated on it. There are many technical experts in the group, a company employed by the city of Ann Arbor. I mean, it was a very impressive group. There were probably 5 or 6 elected officials that will be in the group. So I'm just learning about it now.
Kathy, when was that set up?
A month ago, 6 weeks ago, perhaps.
Because I was on the prior group back in, when was it, 2000 something, for the 50-year plan for the city. I wasn't invited this time. Maybe they knew I'm too busy, or they don't want somebody that has too much information. Thanks.
There's a lot of scientific expertise in this group. There was someone there who's a PFAS expert, multiple engineers, water experts. It was quite impressive.
Expertise is good if they have the data.
Okay.
You need a lot of different viewpoints to weigh in on the data.
Yes.
All right. So with regard to Beth's comment, Beth, maybe you want to pass along the EPA information you had from your activism to Roger and to James. So if they appear in front of the Planning Commission in the township, they can present that information as well.
Yeah, and James, you and I should coordinate before Monday.
I already
Sounds good, Roger.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next item, the Bylaws Revision Committee. Rita, do you have anything to report on this?
Well, I'll just give an update that a version is available now, I think, to be distributed for people to review the recommended changes to the bylaws. The initiating stimulus for looking at the bylaws was to expand the number of officers in the oversight entity, which James worked with me. We worked together to look at the bylaws, and James pointed out that there's a difference between a board of directors and an executive committee. And I looked it up, and sure enough, so it's probably more appropriate to call this an executive committee that we are expanding. And that's not me. But there's a committee that we are expanding. I don't have my video on because I'm on an old camera. But the more I looked at the bylaws, the more things I saw. So it's just kind of crazy. So anyway, you'll all get a chance to weigh in on it. I don't know, Roger or Beth, if you want to talk about the process we were thinking about in the timeline for that. That's all.
Roger, do you know, like, I mean, since we're not having a July meeting, we want to get nominations for October, and we need to vote on this before the next election.
Yeah, I think we should distribute it this month and then let people weigh in and vote on it in August. so that we can prepare for the election in October. We have a side-by-side compare in the old and new versions ready to share, and so I didn't want to do that during the meeting because there's enough other stuff to talk about. So we'll do that through an email, and if we need a special meeting, if there's enough demand, otherwise we'll take care of it in August.
All right, that sounds good to me. So,
Also, just, I'm sorry, Jack,
that's all
I
right.
forgot to put my hand up, but I just think that it would be good at least to give us some time in the August meeting for people to raise any questions. We don't have to go through it line by line and compare, but if people had some issue that they wanted to bring forward, that may not be resolved easily in an email. I mean, we don't need any corrections of grammar for that meeting, but there could be where somebody says, I really think that this should be changed, and I've got an opinion on it. We should leave some time in the August meeting for that to happen.
Yeah, the link to the final version is revised, ready to be voted on, is here in the agenda. That's what I just clicked on.
Yeah, thanks.
And that this will be shared. Probably already is shared with people.
All righty. Go ahead, James.
Oh, just a quick comment, and that is that yes, we should leave time at the August meeting. People do have major concerns, but I really recommend that CARD committee members, if they have concerns, share them in terms of discussion prior to the meeting, and particularly to Rita in terms of any suggestions that should be made, so that we can move quickly and then have a good orderly process for the following 2 months.
It's set up right now that anybody can access this, can make comments. So they could highlight a particular set of statements and make their comment.
Very good.
And then anybody, the people reviewing it, before voting, we can weigh in on the comments. It's important that you identify yourself and don't be anonymous. So somebody made an anonymous comment, we need to know who it is. So there is that point.
Okay. One other procedural point is, before the August meeting, we should probably have a list of eligible voters available. So,
yeah, that'll be dependent upon who attended this meeting.
Yep. All righty then. If there's no further comment on the bylaws, I'm going to turn it over to the chair for his update.
All right, let's see if I can bring up everything I need to bring up here. How about this one?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I thought that while Roger's doing that, maybe I could just say I got an email back from Yale, which said that if individuals would like to come and would like to observe the meeting, the External Advisory Board meeting on Thursday, they are welcome to. I think I just mentioned Roger's name in the email, so if anyone else wants to, I'll put the link in the chat. But I think you should tell me, because if they start seeing a bunch of names, so that I can let Yale know who might join the meeting. If they start seeing all of a sudden 10 names that they don't recognize, they might be afraid they're being Zoom bombed or something. Does that make sense? That
makes sense.
Okay. All right. Thanks. That's all.
we probably should have some kind of review process for, we'll put something in the agenda or the follow up to this meeting to say, if you want to join, email so-and-so, and then that way you'll get the link. That way we'll know who it is.
I don't really understand. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't understand either. That's why we need to talk to the Yale people to see if they want to.
I can give you the link. All I'm saying is, if there's more than Roger who wants,
partly, they might have a limitation on how many people can join and all that.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Right.
Is there anyone else? Tell you what, is there anyone else on this call who wants the link? I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah,
let me know. Put it in the chat.
Put it in the
I'll
chat.
send it to you. Up through an email. Okay, thanks.
All right, let's see. Former Knights of Columbus concerns. I think I actually have a link here. Get to it. There we go. So this is what I sent to the Planning Commission last month. So since this update is in the agenda and the link to it is here, you can go look at it at your leisure. But what I sent them were video links of all the times that we talked about KFC at the CARD meetings. So there was a whole bunch of these different meetings. We talked about the KFC site, and here's the times that we talked about it. So I was able to find this quickly because I have a AI assisted scan of the meeting transcripts. Like, I don't have to remember these times. I just remember a couple terms, and I could search through all the transcripts and find exactly when we talked about a certain topic. So that makes it a lot easier when we're doing stuff like this. So this talks about all the concerns that I had at that time, but basically it's troubling when you have planners and decision makers that are making decisions around the Gelman site and they don't understand the Gelman site. They don't even show it on their plans. They try to ignore it. And as I pointed out here in this email, the Gelman site is the elephant in the room. And anybody making decisions anywhere near this, it's not just water decisions, but other kind of decisions, needs to consider the Gelman site, because it's not going away anytime soon. The EPA will do a better job on getting a long-term cleanup, but it's going to be there long after all of us are gone. And we need to address it. Decision makers have to do their due diligence to match the scale of the problem. So that was that update. Let's see if I can find my next thing here. Yeah, as Kathy mentioned, they want to extend the water, but it's not going to be sewer. So the question is, how much of that outside water that we're bringing in from the river and from Steer Farms area, what's that going to do to the water table in the KFC area? And how much of that how will that affect the flow of Gelman dioxin blooms? We have limited hydrogeological data for that area. As I pulled up here, by the way, these are the wellhead protection areas for the city supply wells and the old one that was shut down. And then the provisional wellhead protection areas for these daycare centers here and here. And when the KFC site was going to have its own water source, they would have had to have a provisional wellhead protection area that would probably extend back into the plume, like these two provisional wellhead protection areas for the daycare centers. These are typically 10-year travel time. When you're pumping from here, it might take 10 years for the water from here to get up there. When they did when I was on the 50-year plan for the city, this was the wellhead protection area for the Northwest Supply Well. They actually went on another 5 or 10 years, and that would already encompass the Gelman property. So the wellhead protection areas typically don't account for forever chemicals that last more than 5, 10, 20 years. And a lot of rules do not account for forever chemicals like dioxane and PFAS. And we better start paying attention. Michigan has a potential problem with PFAS. Is there enough PFAS just at Escota up in northern Michigan to eventually contaminate enough water in Lake Huron that it might start showing up in the Detroit water system? That's a question I have. I didn't put it on the note here, but that's always, you know, to look long term when you're dealing with forever chemicals. Limited hydrogeological data. The other thing I've shown on here, let me turn off the wellhead protection areas. And what I've turned on here are all the cross-section diagrams that Gelman has provided, and I even have cross-sections from other sources, from Larry Lemke and some other researchers. Cross-sections by others. Oops, I don't want to turn on the maps because the maps are not linked properly. So these are the cross-section diagrams for that the company has. These are the cross-section diagrams that I could find that others have created. And if you notice, none of these cross-section diagrams encompass the KFC site. And that's a hole in the understanding of what's going on here. We don't know how dioxane got here to Breezewood. We don't know how the dioxane got to Elizabeth Road. And we really don't know how dioxane got to all these properties inside a township that have hits. And of course, the one over in Ann Arbor Township that had a hit and then it didn't have a hit. There could, we think that there's a hypothesis that there are narrow plumes of high concentrations. And I think I have a image here, if I can get to it. It's probably one of these, yeah. So this is a cross-section diagram that I've enhanced with coloring, made by Gelman back in 2007. This is showing the cross-section diagram along Wagner Road. And these are the areas that have high concentrations of dioxane. If you think of looking back to the west, these are the narrow plumes of a high concentration that are going somewhere to the east. It looks at west to east flow. And some of these are, you know, pretty high concentrations, 1,000 parts per billion. I think that's the highest that they showed on this, 1,000 or more parts per billion. I mean, you look down here, originally it was 4,000, 3,000, 5,000 parts per billion. Where did that come from? Where are those pathways that led to this diagram? And where do the pathways go to? We don't know because there's not enough data. And similarly, we don't have enough data to the north to see any narrow pathways there. But this is consistent with Larry Lemke's Play-Doh extrusion model that says that dioxane could be extruding out in narrow pathways in different places and sometimes merged together with other. They're like fingers of contamination. Before Farsad Fatui, Gelman's Paul's environmental coordinator, was let go, he offhand mentioned to me that there could be hundreds of these type of fingers of contamination. And I thought he was exaggerating at the time. But after seeing all of these hits that no one expected, there's no experts expected this. Larry Lemke said, well, there could be dispersions, out here, a half mile or, across the expressway, but no one expected a mile north of the plume. So we've got some fingers of contamination that we're just now discovering. And we're not following up with it the way we should, because the state's going to go back and sample these locations. But with their method of detection, they're going to miss 40% of these. They're going to miss 40% of these hits that SIO found. So we're not going to have good information until we have due diligence to match the scale of the problem. Back to my other concerns with the Knights at Columbus site, of course, is the traffic. And that site was designated as I think it's zoned as more recreational or something like that. It would be a good spot for a park. And maybe that'll happen someday, because once you develop an area, it's kind of hard to make a park out of it. Once you put an underground parking lot in, you can't put a park on top of it. We want to keep some of the livability area around Ann Arbor for people to use, and not just outsiders to come in and spend a few months at a time. Let's see, we have there was a report from these are the new things since last meeting. I just wanted people to have a link to them. This was a Planet Detroit reports on the Gelman plume, a pretty good update of what was going on from their point of view. And this is a new item that the School of Information has a theme year for community partners. The idea of community partners is that they have students who want to help make a entity better by volunteering, or maybe even getting paid if there's money available, to help address unmet needs in an organization, in an entity. And it's not just CARD that could be involved here. It could be SRSW, it could be any of the local governments, could be any of the nonprofits who are on. And one of the things that I've been thinking about since ChatGPT came out is that we need a ChatGPT-like app to help anybody involved who's touched by the Gelman site to be able to get up to date and get questions answered without making decisions in the dark. And I have a lot of information that can be fed into that. Some of it's already digitized, some of it is not. But even that digitization could be something that could be done by the Community Partners Program. Ideally, it would be an ongoing thing that would go on into the future, so that 1 year can and not have to. We don't need any more one-off analyses, because it doesn't help us going into the future. We need to, if we do something, we do it right, and we have it set up so we can redo it on a periodic basis to understand how things change over time. And that's what I've been trying to do with Google Earth and other visualizations. Because the only way we know what's going on with dioxin is with data. Where was the dioxin? Where is it? Where is it going, and how fast? When I first got involved in the Gelman site, I asked, where's the data? It took more than a year, but I finally got a copy of Gelman's data as of 1995, and here are links to the documents that relate to that. But it's been hit or miss. ever since, with some data being lost, ignored, or withheld, as we find it out, because they're withheld under the confidentiality cover. And that's not helping solve the problem. Early on, I was using foam board and paper and computer images to do visualizations, and then in 2005, started using Google Earth when it first came out and kicked it up a few notches. Even got the Google Earth engineers to add a feature that wasn't there that I needed for some of my visualizations. And then Tableau Public, when it came out, I started using that. That's another, these are two things that also could be assisted with the School of Information community engagement. And I've been an advocate of open link data as exposed by, these are two examples I like to send of Tim Berners-Lee TED Talk when he gets the 1,000 people in the audience who paid several $1,000s to hear him talk, to chant raw data now, raw data now. A very enlightening and inspiring TED Talk. And then there's another one that he has that follows up on that to show what you can do once you have open link data. You don't have to do as much guessing. You don't have to spend a lot of time searching for stuff, because we have tools to do that kind of searching. And one of the examples he uses, Hans Rosling's one of his Gapminder presentations at TED, and I think this best stats one is the best. So I encourage people to follow these links, look at these videos, and see what's possible with the tools we have nowadays. And I'm looking for, ideally, I'd have a Chat GPT-like app take over what I've been doing for 30 years and have somebody else update it. I'm still working on the updates to Google Earth mashups and the Tableau Public, because again, some of the data is not very clean, as the EPA noted. Some of the data is not as usable as it could be right off the bat, and some of that's just coding the data and having standards for how you name a address location. The post office has standards. Why can't we just use those same standards? Instead, we get 50 variations of addresses that when there's only 10 addresses involved. Anyway, that's my beef, and I'll wrap it up there. Take any questions anybody has.
So any comments or questions of Roger? Well, Roger, thank you for the update. Very informative. I guess we move on to non-agenda items. Is there anything that anybody wants to raise at this point in the agenda? Seeing no hands. As Beth mentioned, we don't have a July meeting. We should have a fair amount of correspondence between now and the August meeting over bylaws and other related matters. So thank you, everybody, for your time and attention to this.
I can't believe we're ending early.
Well, I think we're going to see more of this as the EPA moves into the forefront. A lot of our prior meetings were consumed with discussions of our disappointment over the limit of the state action. And as we escape those limitations, I think we're going to be more productive here.
Yeah. All good.
Okay.
I'm going to stay on a few minutes after I end the recording here. So if anybody wants to stay and chat for a few minutes.
I'll be here.
Well, we had Abby from Michigan Environmental
Yes.
Council. She joined for the first time.
And I've got her email already that you sent me, Roger. So I'll add you, Abby, to the lists.
Absolutely.
And if Abby wants to stick around after the recording stops, we can chat with her and answer any questions she may have. So,
Yeah, I'm going to stop the recording now. And
Thank
stop
you.
the share.
Well, and when I spoke up about the Ann Arbor Planning Commission, I have to say that my elected officials at the time in Ann Arbor voted down the project. So ultimately, the Planning Commission isn't the last vote, you know, in SIO, I'm assuming, right?
It goes to the township board. I will say that I'm very impressed. I'm sorry, Kathy isn't still on with the South Township Planning Commission. They ask a lot of questions. They're not hesitant to do their due diligence. I think they have a very different bookway than what the city of Ann Arbor has done with its planning commission over the number of years. So you're poorly treated by the city. There's no question about it, Beth. I can't say that enough.